Welcome in the second part of the video tutorial on data processing with EEGpal. Today we will work on the independent component analysis or ICA. The aim of the ICA is to break the signal into several subcompounds and to visually inspect these compounds to find some artifact like eye blink to remove them. This is a very popular artifact rejection technique in EEG community. We can open the ICA module by pressing on this button. The ICA module windows is divided in several steps which will be executed in a successive way. Before to start the ICA processing, we need to specify some parameter in this part of the windows. The first option is to define if you want to concatenate files from the same participant. When you have several files for one participant, it is important to perform the same artifact rejection for all of them. If it's not the case, you could introduce artificial difference, especially if your experimental conditions are in different file. It will mean that if you have difference, you will be unsure if it's real or it's due to the processing. The easiest way to deal with this problem is to concatenate all the files from one participant to perform a single ICA decomposition for him. If you have specified subject parameter in the data table of the main EEGpal windows, this option will be automatically activated. The second step will be to specify in this table if there is bad channel to ignore from the decomposition. To get clean ICA decomposition, it's better to ignore bad electrodes that we will interpolate. There is two types of this artifact. First, it is the bridged channel which has been detected during the first step of our processing. The reason why ICA required to have independent channel, which is definitely not the case with bridged channel which record the same signal. If you have performed a bridge detection in the same EEGpal session or retrieve results through a parameter processing file, it will automatically fill the table with the bridge detected. The second type of bad electrodes is electrodes with noisy signal due to a technical artifact. See on this example that this electrode is very noisy and definitely not to consider. You can fill the table with the indices of the bad channels, but not with the electrode's name. As the ICA required clean data, you should ask me why not performing the ICA after the interpolation. The answer is the same as for the e-bridge. Interpolation will replace an electrode by an estimation with its surrounding electrodes, which means that the interpolated channel is not independent from the other, which is a problem for a good ICA decomposition. It has been explained by Arnaud Delorme in his tutorial video on ICA. It is why it's better to ignore bad channel now and interpolate them at a later stage. When it's ready, you can start the decomposition. It will use the Run ICA algorithm developed by EEG Lab using the Infomax ICA algorithm of Bell and Sejnowski. This processing takes a long time. It's why it's a good idea to launch the decomposition before you leave work and let the computer work during the night. When it's done, you will have access to the inspection table. To look at each ACA compound, click on the corresponding tick for each file. It takes a few moments in order to let the time to ICA label to classify the compounds. ICA label is a plugin in EEG Lab which permits to help you to recognize the compounds. It uses a classifier trained by scientists to categorize them between eye, muscles, heart, channel noise, line noise artifact, as well as brain activity or other. For more details, please look at the following website. During the inspection, EEGpal will open three windows. The first windows represent the topography of the different compounds with the highest probability compute by ICA label. The second windows is the time course of each ICA compound. And the third one will permit you to manually enter the indices of the compounds that you would like to remove from your signal. Those one will be transmit to this column of the table. The first time that you are going to use this ICA compound visualization, it will probably open these warning windows instead of opening the trace windows. To overcome this problem, go to the common windows of MATLAB and tap the command EEGlab to open the interface of EEGlab. Then you go to File, Preference, and you make sure that those two options are selected. And now when you come back to your ICA, you redo your inspection and it solved the problem. By default, EEGpal will show you the 24 first compound. The maximal number of compounds which are estimated correspond to the number of electrodes take account during the decomposition minus 1. If you want to see all of them, you can change here the number of compounds which are displayed. Do note that they are classified by order of their power, and usually scientists don't look more than the 20 to 24 first compounds because the contribution of the following ones are negligible in the main signal. To help you work of inspection, you can ask ICA label to tag automatically the compounds. You can specify a threshold for each category. When it's reached, it will automatically transfer the compounds indices into the third inspection windows. A threshold of 100 means that those categories will be not tested. If you feel enough confident, you can ask ICA label to perform all the inspection automatically. However, I strongly recommend to not doing that because the classification is not perfect most of the time. It's why it's better to visually check its suggestions. Now I'm going to show you how I would perform the visual inspection. The easiest compound to spot are the eye movements. For example, this component 2, the strong positivity or negativity in frontal electrodes is characteristic for the vertical eye blinks. For the component 6, the dipole red-blue to the right and the left frontal electrode is characteristic for the horizontal eye movement. This is typically the two main artifacts that we want to remove from the signal, and you see that it already introduced the index number in the component to remove windows. To note about the topography, you can click on its number to display the compound's property exactly as in EEGlab. So in these windows, you see the evolution of your compound through time by dividing your signal into epoch of arbitrary duration, in this case 300 milliseconds, and in the y-axis the epoch indices. Finally, you got the power spectrum of this compound. To note that, please don't use the OK button or the accept button because they don't perform their intended functions as we are outside of EEGlab. To close the windows, it's better to use the cross. I take another example to show you muscle artifact. The muscle artifact is characterized with the power spectrum with huge power, low frequency, which decrease and increase again after 10 Hz. You can look at the time course of the ICA with its regular spikes through time, which is characteristic from a muscle artifact. When you have a doubt about a compound, it may be better to keep it instead of removing too much signal, even if ICA label has characterized it as artifact. Usually it's recommended to not remove more than 20 or 30% of the compound. For example, if you have 64 electrodes and you ignore 3 of them, it means that you will have a decomposition of 60 compounds. So you should avoid to remove more than 12 compounds. As last advice, I encourage you to make caution about the ICA label when you ignore a lot of electrodes, because it can perturbate the classification. When you have finished the inspection, you can define the output option like in the filtering model. With the output file format, specify the output folder where the file will be saved, and if you want to change the suffix string in the file name. You have a supplementary option to indicate if you want to keep or not the intermediate file generated by ICA decomposition. If you decide to keep it, you will find it in the subfolder ICA temp located inside of your input folder. Inside of this subfolder, you will get set file that you can load in the main EEGpal windows and then open again the ICA module. You will have access directly to the inspection table without needing to redo the decomposition. Now we can start the recomposition of our signal without the noisy compound that we specify by pressing on the Run button. It concludes this video. We will see the following processing step in the next video.